This is a story of different worlds. In the beginning, each knew little of the other. But in time, they would learn.
Here it is. The Spanish are to the south. To the north, the French. The boundary on the east is the great ocean. As for the west thereof, the limits are unknown. The King's Charter allows for a colony of our people in this part, commonly called Virginia.
A colony? You spoke of a business venture, Sir Thomas.
Gentlemen, let us not quibble over words. For some time now, I have been the treasurer of the Muscovy and East India Companies, as many of you know, having turned a profit by them. But we now propose a joint stock company in Virginia, a grand opportunity for those with money to risk. By your own efforts, you may all become wealthy men.
And is this place safe from the Spanish?
We shall have a fort well hidden from the sea. Newport here shall be admiral to our 3 ships. He has captured or destroyed some 20 Spanish vessels and knows the western waters. Now, once landed, he and our adventurers shall seek a route to the Orient and send back precious metals and other valuable materials that may be found, and gain for the glory of God and England and for our own fortunes a place in this new world.
The Spanish grow rich, not only by their own labors, but by the native peoples.
That and whatever they may plunder.
And what of the natives of this place?
Ah, yes, the Indians.
Some 14,000 Powhatan Indians were then living in Virginia, a land they called Senecomaco. In harmony with the land that sustained them, they hunted, fished, and raised crops, and were, by 1607, an advanced, complex society of families and tribes. About 30 of these tribes were loosely united under a powerful chief, Wahunsonacock. Known also as Powhatan, Wahunsonacock was the paramount or supreme chief of the Powhatan people. The other tribal chiefs owed allegiance and paid tribute to him in return for his help in keeping them safe from enemies. They lived on the coastal plain, beside the rivers and the Chesapeake Bay. On May the 14th, 1607, the Virginia Company's adventurers landed 60 miles up a river they named the James to honor their king. It was there they established a base of operation. Bring the Bible to life in virtual reality. It began well. The Indians brought food and goods for trading. Their interests lay in the remarkable new tools and weapons the English used, especially guns and swords. But soon there were misunderstandings, and relations deteriorated, at times ending in violence. In June, after the construction of James Fort, Captain Newport set sail for England, pledging to return with supplies and more men by November. But November came and went. Supplies grew short. By December, half of the colony had perished. Captain John Smith, an experienced soldier with little tolerance for those he considered lazy or inept, took action, leading a handful of men up the Chickahominy River to trade for food with the Powhatans. From the beginning, Smith was disliked by some of his fellow colonists, who considered him an insufferable braggart at best, a traitor at worst. When their vessel could go no further up the narrowing river, Smith journeyed on, accompanied only by an Indian guide. It was then that the Indians he sought discovered him. What Smith did not know was that along the Chickahominy, a great fall hunt was taking place, and the English trading party had unwittingly become prey. Indeed, some of his companions who had remained downriver were now already dead. Lashed to his guide as a shield, Smith found himself surrounded. Smith was captured.
Well, my brother, is he to be trusted? Were his English truly brought here against their will by a great wind from beyond the Chesapeake, not to steal our land, but in search of a place beyond the mountains?
Priests have looked inside of him for the truth. They believe him to be of good will. Maybe an ally.
Him? He's a good warrior?
When we took him, we fought bravely.
How do these English live? They are poor hunters, and without women to grow and gather food, how can they eat?
They were searching for us to trade when we found them. They have powerful tools and weapons we could use against our enemies.
If they are so powerful, why do they build their villages with great walls so far upriver, and in a place with no good water to drink? Perhaps their wisdom is not as great as their weapons.
True. Smith says an English was killed. Maybe by our enemy.
Yes, perhaps the Smith and his English can be allies. We shall see.
Smith was allowed to return to Jamestown, only to find himself charged with responsibility for the deaths of the 2 colonists who'd been killed by Opechancanoug's warriors. Fortunately for Smith, Captain Newport returned the next day from England with new colonists and supplies, and the charges were dropped. Under Newport, Smith took control of the struggling colony, forcing the dispirited English to focus on the task at hand: survival. It was not easy. The fort burned down, leaving most with only the clothes on their backs to face what was already a brutal winter. Their only hope for survival now lay with the Indians. Meeting with Wahant Sonnecock to seek cooperation and support, Newport left 13-year-old Thomas Savage to learn their language and customs. An Indian boy came to the English to do the same. The colony hung on, trading with the Indians for corn when they would, taking it by force when they would not, as the Powhatans grew increasingly hostile. In September that same year, Newport came again to Jamestown with 70 more colonists, including the first English women, Mistress Forrest and her maid Anne Burris.
The company has had reports that our enterprise in Virginia does not fare well. Captain Smith warns
I
that...
dislike Smith. He is not a gentleman.
True, but he is a leader. The colony would not likely have survived thus far without him.
What do you suggest, Sir Thomas?
Many have died. They rely too much on the natives for food. We must send a larger expedition, that their numbers be not overwhelmed by famine, disease, Indian attack, or Spanish invasion. We have petitioned the king for a new charter, so that we may replace the council in Virginia with a military governor. And we must have practical men, blacksmiths, farmers, masons, and the like.
How mean you to finance such an expedition?
Shares to the public at large. Enlist the clergymen to spread the word from their pulpits. 56 companies and guilds and some 600 adventurers have signed on, each to receive a grant of land and a share of treasure and profits as shall be obtained.
Profits indeed. 3 years ago, you vowed we would be wealthy men.
There have been problems unforeseen. Before it turns a profit, the colony must survive.
Smith's leadership ended in late 1609, when a gunpowder explosion badly injured him, forcing his return to England. It was the Powhatan custom to store only as much corn as they would need to survive the winter, but the land suffered from severe drought, and now the Indians had little to spare for the English. In the fort, supplies ran out. Afraid to venture beyond its palisades because of the Indian threat, the colonists remained within the fort. This was the starving time. Some died of fluxes or fevers, but most simply starved. They ate their horses, dogs, rats, and their boots.
Some pulled corpses out of the ground and ate them. Others dug their own graves and laid down in them, waiting for death. God save their souls.
By May 1610, out of 300 colonists, some 90 now remained alive. In desperation, they prepared to leave. But on Sunday, June the 10th, a new governor arrived to turn their ship around. Lord Delaware, a harsh but godly man. With 150 new settlers and enough provisions to last a year, Lord Delaware pulled the colony back from the brink of extinction. Within a year, however, he was gone, replaced by Sir Thomas Dale, a professional soldier. Dale toughened and expanded the colony's martial laws so severely that a man could be executed for stealing a single ear of corn.
Well,
Martial law stabilized the colony, but did nothing to ensure peaceful relations with the Indians. In 1613, Wahun Sonnecock's favored daughter, Pocahontas, was captured by the English and held hostage. During her captivity, a romance began with John Rolfe, and in 1614, she married the English gentleman.
those whom God hath joined together, let no man put asunder.
Governor Dale approved of the union, hoping it would bring peace. For a time it did. Rolfe had been growing tobacco, experimenting in the hope of developing a cash crop. In 1616, Governor Dale decided that sending Rolfe, his Indian bride, and infant son Thomas to England would provide good publicity for the colony. The Virginia Company hoped that the visit of Pocahontas to England would help ensure the success of the venture, generating new interest among the English as she continued to serve as a peace emissary between the cultures. By 1618, internal changes, dissensions within the Virginia Company forced the resignation of Sir Thomas Smythe and the election of a new treasurer, Sir Edwin Sandys.
Well, Sir Edwin, what think you now? We send enough men to replace the dead, no gold, no trade route. Colony costs £7,000 a year and has yet to turn a profit.
Well, be patient, Sir Robert. With all due respect, I am the company's treasurer. There are plans.
I tell you, this is a colony built upon smoke. There are real riches to be had, and the Portuguese and Spanish know well enough how to obtain them. Why should we not take from the Spanish what they have already stolen? At Jamestown, my privateers are but 2 weeks' sail from the Spanish Main. You would grow rich while the colonies starve. Our investment is not for the plunder of Spanish ships. I cannot condone such action. What then dost thou suggest, Sir Edwin?
I suggest that we send 100 willing maids to those who would have wives. That we encourage the colonists to produce their own staples and solid commodities, and that we petition a new charter, whereby the colonists may not only own their own land, but address their own interests in a representative assembly. We plant families and give them a greater stake in their own colony. Well, who would not enjoy the freedom to grow?
For more than 100 years, the Portuguese had been sailing the coasts of Africa. Seeking gold, ivory, and other commodities for trade. While Jamestown struggled to survive, the Portuguese, with African allies, were fighting a war of expansion against the Kingdom of Dongo in Angola. The peoples of Angola belonged to several ancient tribal groups, but shared similar languages and culture. They lived in the countryside, in villages and towns. The women farmed sorghum, millet, other food crops, even tobacco. The men were skilled craftsmen, blacksmiths, trading their products with other African groups, as well as Europeans. Ruled by a king or queen who oversaw provincial leaders called sobas, it was a society of free people, serfs, and slaves. In the 1500s, the Portuguese had begun attempts to colonize Angola, establishing the city of Luanda as their capital. Africans captured in war were enslaved and shipped to their New World sugar plantations, or sold to the Spanish. While the Portuguese were the main slave traders in Angola, other European and Arab nations participated in the trade. By the summer of 1619, thousands of slaves were waiting at the port city of Luanda until Portuguese ships arrived to take them away.
You must separate those who have been baptized from those that are not. All the slaves that are not already Christians must be baptized and must receive a Christian name before they embark. Have you been baptized, my son? Then you shall be inserted in the Christian religion, and your name shall be Paulo. Paulo. Have you been baptized, my child?
Yes.
And what's your Christian name?
Angela. Enomona Zambi.
What did she say?
That she's a child of God. When she dies, she will go to heaven.
That summer of 1619, a Portuguese ship carrying 350 Angolan slaves set sail for Mexico, only to be intercepted in the Caribbean by English privateers, the White Lion, and Sir Robert Rich's ship, the Treasurer, the same ship that had carried Pocahontas to England some 2 years earlier. Taken as prizes from the Portuguese ship, some 20 Angolans arrived a few weeks later at Jamestown. These were the first Africans in Virginia.